I've organized this press conference because of the epidemic of gun violence that has plagued the United States of America. It seems like every other day another mass shooting happens because people are accessing guns without necessary barriers and necessary restrictions. In Uvalde, Texas, a gunman entered Robb Elementary School and murdered 21 people, 19 children and 2 teachers. A combination of an action by the local law enforcement, non-existent gun laws, and the purchase of 2 automatic assault rifles by the gunman, and a lack of mental health resources contributed to the slaughter of these young children. The gunman that accessed the weapons that led to the Uvalde, Texas massacre was able to purchase 2 assault rifles a day after his 18th birthday. He was able to do this without trouble and without a waiting period. There was no licensing process and there was no check-in with law enforcement. This mass shooting could have happened anywhere, and it does happen anywhere in America. We've cultivated a gun culture in the United States through the Second Amendment. People believe, as if they are entitled to a weapon of mass murder. Every one of those children and teachers that were murdered in Uvalde, Texas, Sandy Hook, Columbine, countless other tragedies that could have been prevented, they deserve to be here today. The Constitution of the United States implemented the Second Amendment at a time where the fastest you could load a weapon took a minute at the very least. And even after that, you were only able to fire a single round of ammunition before repeating the process again. The Constitution is a living and breathing document, and the Founding Fathers knew this at the time. We must take action on the federal level to amend and change. In a time where a majority of common sense gun reform is not only needed and popular, but actively favored by the majority of Americans, the governor of this state, Brian Kemp, believes that it is actually necessary to remove regulations on firearms, signing a bill earlier this year that would no longer require a weapons permit to conceal carry. If dead children and scarred families are not enough for Republican legislators to see that we need background checks, we need permits, proper mental health funding, and red flag laws, then they have blood on their hands every day a tragedy like this happens. Every day that passes, we see more and more mass shootings across this nation. And if we are unable to come together and stop this, there's a chance I might not be here today advocating for what is right in the future. There's a real possibility that one day someone might walk into my high school in Swanee, Georgia, and shoot me dead because nothing was done to stop them from doing so. We need laws that will prevent what happened in Uvalde, Texas, and in countless other tragedies that could have been prevented. A gun should be treated as if it was a vehicle, with licensing and training necessary to purchase a firearm. We need universal background checks, we need red flag laws, and we need weapons permits and licenses. We need to end the wave of gun violence and mass shootings in this nation, and we need lawmakers that will implement laws to protect our schools, our communities, and our country. Legislators on the local, state, and federal level must come together to work on a solution to address gun violence and stop it once and for all.
You want to give me your name and your age?
I'm Tyler, I'm 15. I currently attend Peachtree Ridge High School, and I'm a concerned student out here doing this.
Thank you, Tyler. So Tyler called me and from fear and just anxiety that these students are feeling. I can tell you I came to this country in 1998, and in 1999 my daughter was in middle school at Sequoia Middle School, and the Columbine shooting happened. At the day that it happened, I remember everybody just being afraid we went to pick up our kids. The next day I kept my daughter home, but then I realized we cannot live in fear all the time. But I didn't think that 23 years later we would be here again. And I honestly thought after Sandy Hook that something would be done with our babies being full with lead. We have and I'm going to plainly say, we have a party, the Republican Party of elected officials who are not even listening to their own constituents about guns, that don't seem to understand that this is an issue of health. It's a crisis in this country that we are slaughtering people every day, and it's happening more and more every day. So for me, and as a child, I was exposed to gun violence myself. I came close to dying twice by gun violence. So for me, I understand the anxiety. I remember when I went to Canada and a car backfired. My sister and I jumped to the ground because we thought it was bullets. And so I know what these young people are feeling. It is up to us as adults to do something to help these children not feel so afraid and feel this kind of anxiety. And again, this is an important day. This is Gun Violence Awareness Day, and that's why most of us are wearing orange. But I think it's so important for everyone to understand how very important it is for adults to act like adults and actually let our kids feel like we're going to protect them. It is very, very painful to watch every day and to watch our kids, and I have a grandson, to watch them be in fear. So I'm urging Congress and of course our state legislature, which we are a part of. We did not do right by our students and our constituents when we passed the permitless gun legislation this year, and the governor signed into law. It is time for us to act like adults. A well-regulated militia is not what I'm seeing, and AR-15 are weapons of mass destruction. I'm going to call my colleague, Representative Jasmine Clark, to speak a little bit about this issue.
Thank you very much. So once again, our country is mourning an unspeakable tragedy. And you are probably thinking to yourself, which one? We've had mass shootings all across our country within the last week, but honestly, for years, for decades. We had a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. Then days later, we had a mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And then we had a mass shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and countless other places. It has become all too familiar. It has become an all too familiar response to the loss of innocent lives. Listen, thoughts and prayers are just not enough from the NRA-backed politicians. Since Uvalde alone, which was not that long ago, there have been at least 17 mass shootings across the country, including one again just this week, or multiple this week. And even though the United States is the only country in the world in which crimes of this nature are so common, conservatives would still have you to believe that the number and accessibility of guns in this country has nothing to do with the carnage. As a scientist, I am trained to analyze data and determine solutions. And in this case, the solutions are clear. This narrative that the good guy with a gun is the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is absolute nonsense. It is not backed up by any evidence or any data. Also, in 2017, gun violence surpassed cars as the leading cause of death for children and young adults in our nation. Right now, children are statistically more likely to be shot and killed than either police officers or active duty military. Let me put that another way. In the United States, it is more dangerous to just be a child than to be in the military. That is absolutely unacceptable. Gun violence in this country is an epidemic, and we need to start addressing it as a public health issue. Fortunately, there are common sense policies that we can implement right now that would reduce gun violence and are overwhelmingly popular with Georgians. Policies like instituting universal background checks for anyone purchasing a gun, banning the untraceable, self-assembled ghost guns in our state, and raising the purchase age for firearms to at least 21. While measures like these are overwhelmingly supported by a majority of Georgians and Americans, they are vehemently opposed by certain politicians who are in the pocket of the gun lobby. So we need our elected officials to use this data to determine legislative solutions, and we need a governor who cares about actually seeking solutions that will protect our children and our loved ones. I, for one, will never stop fighting for logical, fact-based solutions to put an end to this senseless violence. The NRA and other gun lobbyists are going to do everything in their power to try and stop any solutions. from being implemented in our state. And we have to do all we can to stand up and say, we will not take this anymore. Enough is enough. We have to do something. Thank you.
I'm gonna call up my colleague, Representative Shelley Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you. I am State Representative Shelley Hutchinson. I represent the area around Brookwood High School in Gwinnett County. I'm going to talk about my children who just graduated from Brookwood High School. People know that I am very vocal about how that after they graduated, I sent them overseas for college. Not because we're rich, because it's cheaper to send them there, but because it's safer there. The gun violence is non-existent. Their friends overseas are baffled at why the United States is so plagued with gun violence. Where they are, guns are banned. My son is a 19-year-old black boy who towers over me, and his afro towers even farther. I am terrified when he's here and driving by himself. Gun violence, I should not have to send my children overseas to let them feel safe. I should not have to send my children away from me for them to be safe from being shot anywhere at any given time. Yesterday, from what I'm being told, Amnesty has issued a warning to people traveling to the United States about the extreme gun violence in this country. Let me repeat that. The planet is warning people not to come to the United States because of gun violence. Yet Georgia just passed a law to not have any regulation whatsoever when it comes to guns in Georgia. This makes no sense. This doesn't make sense economically. It doesn't make sense for our sense of safety and well-being in this country as citizens. We are calling on everyone today to make our children safer. I implore anyone who's listening, particularly in a position of power, to make this country safer so I can have my children here. And that is sad. And that's why we will continue to fight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the chair of the Gwinnett County School Board, Dr. Teresa Johnson.
To those impacted by the most recent tragedies and to those who suffer from post-traumatic stress from horrific events in the past, we send our deepest condolences. But we know we have to go beyond condolences, thoughts, and prayers, but we have to focus on actions to ensure the safety of our communities, including our children. Every mass shooting resurfaces a pain, and it becomes difficult to truly heal. The healing process can occur with actions such as seeking professional counseling, family and community support, and ensuring that tragic events do not continue to happen. Enough is enough. We need actions to stop gun violence. We all know that our children are our most precious resource, and it is important for us to keep them safe and secure. We must also not conflate protection of our school facilities with more people in school with guns. Teachers and staff need to focus on caring and educating for our children. We have to ask them to do so much, and we've asked them for so long to go above and beyond the call of duty. We know our teachers and our staff members are superhuman beings, and we need them to have joy in the work that they do and to also feel safe. But we can't continue to ask them to carry guns and expect them to have guns in the classroom. We must create protections for our children while ensuring that they have a healthy and harmonious learning environment. The environment must not make them feel like they're in a prison or other things that may increase risks to their safety. We do need, however, strict gun laws. We need policies and gun restrictions to eliminate easy access to high-powered weapons. Guns should not be in our schools, and they should not be a threat to the innocent people living their daily lives. All school facilities should ensure the entry to the building is secure and locked. The doors should be locked, and we should have a strong process to verify visitors. All classroom doors should be secured with multiple barriers to entry. We should have one access point. Awareness and training programs need to happen to ensure the safety of staff, students, and teachers. We also need security cameras and communications integrated with security personnel and more gun control. We need legislators to do what they can to protect all citizens. We need people to vote at every level, local, state, and federal, to make sure their representatives support keeping communities and schools safe. We need public servants. We need people and politicians to ensure a ban on assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and to ensure universal background checks. We also need to make sure that we have a process, just like we have to do with vehicle registration, that guns are registered, that people have training on how to use a gun properly, and that there is a registration process for every person carrying and assigned to a particular gun. We need more risk protections and orders for those in danger to themselves and to others. And of course, we need investments in mental health care. We need to ensure that we have resources allocated for anti-bullying, anti-hate, and anti-harassment. We need support to end gun violence in our communities, from bullying, harassment, hate. We need restrictions we need restrictions so when people are on social media that they are watching and they have consequences. We need to make sure that these groups are not encouraging threats, participating in hate speech, condoning racism, and we need to make sure that we take action on credible safety risks. We need our communities to unite, and we need the people to vote for legislators who courageously fight against the risks that are hurting our communities and our children. We need to make sure that our schools are safe and our communities are safe. This is not about politics, or people who are making this gun about a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue about people. This is a safety issue about the people in our community, not politics. Thank you.
Dr. Cerise, is there anyone that want to say anything this time? This is Councilwoman Martin Taylor Crawford.
Good afternoon. I just want to also express the need to expand access to mental health. We talk a lot about, well, it has been said in the news over and over again, this is happening because of mental health. Well, that could not only be the case because when you look at other countries, there are persons with mental health, they're struggling with mental health problems, and we do not see the rate of gun violence in other countries. So we cannot use that argument. Today on the news, it was stated that many families have to give their children over to the state, especially teenagers, because they do not have access to mental health. And that's the only way that their children can get mental health intervention, by giving them up. So because of that, DFACS is inundated with teenage children living in administrative buildings or living in hotels. Police have been called constantly because of that, what is going on. So we are going to use that argument that it's because of lack of mental health. Why are we not supporting legislation that expands Medicaid and other ways to access mental health for our families? So we cannot listen to this argument, and no one here supports that argument, that it's just due to mental health. That's one component, but that's not it exclusively. Therefore, we have to expand Medicaid and make sure that there's not a disparity when it comes to access to mental health. So many of our children are suffering. Our families are suffering, the siblings, and they're suffering from PTSD, and that can be for a lifetime. So please, if you truly want to fight this battle, make sure that money is being put into mental health to expand access to mental health. Thank you so much.
So I think we're going to wrap up. I think all of us that came out here today definitely wanted to express our support for our kids, our country, our people that live in this country. It is unacceptable, like my colleague said, Dr. Clark, Jasmine Clark said, a good guy with a gun ain't gonna stop a bad guy with a gun. We already saw that. We saw that in Uvalde, that there were about 17 good guys with a gun that didn't do anything because the young man had an AR-15. And when you start firing at 300 rounds per second or whatever it is, no one with a gun that doesn't match that will even go in there to stop this guy, this bad guy with a gun. And again, we are the adults in this situation. Our children are fearful, they're suffering from anxiety, and we can't do anything because we have a Second Amendment right. There is also a First Amendment right before the Second Amendment right. And so at the end of the day, we want to respect the Second Amendment right, but it can't be without any kind of guidelines or safety rules. It cannot be the wild, wild west. It has to be about our kids. Our children shouldn't feel that kind of fear. And all the doors locked in the school is also scary too. Because if there's a real emergency, they won't be able to get out as well. So again, I know we didn't get the full media here, but I think the speakers here, we will be posting this and making sure that it goes on every single media outlet so they can see that Gwinnett County cares, the lawmakers here care. We do not stand with our governor with the bill he signed into law with with permitless carry. We do not stand with that, and I just want everyone to know that we are truly concerned, not only as legislators, but we are parents. I'm a grandma. Almost everybody back behind me are parents as well. And so this is a concern that is greater than just about the fact that we're standing here as legislators or concerned citizens. This is about our country. What do we stand for? Who are we? And that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. Who are we? And should we actually think that we don't have any control over this? It's unacceptable. I thank you guys all.
Thank you.
All right.
Big crowd. Big crowd.